(9:04 a.m.) We call this meeting to order. Marcy, just as soon as you're ready, if you would call roll, please.
Director Bradley.
Here.
Director Brams. Director Cardenas.
Here.
Director Valley.
Here.
Director Capley. Director Litvak. Director Olson.
Present.
Director Peterson.
Here.
Director Prokopas.
Here.
Director Silvestrini.
Here.
Director Stevenson.
Here. Okay, thank you. We'll move into public comments. Do we have any public comments today? Do we have any online public comments? Okay. Moving to item 3, UPD update. We'll hear from Sheriff Rivera and Chief Olson.
Good morning, everyone. Before Chief Bolton gives his presentation on the human resources piece, I just wanted to let the board know that we only have about 3 months before we transition from me being the CEO and chief manager and being the chief. So I wanted you to know that there are some documents or contracts, agreements that we have to sign to move forward for the next year. Wanted you to know that we're being very careful whether I sign it or we pass that on to somebody else. So just so you know, Carrie and I are talking as we go through those, just so we make sure there is no conflict whatsoever. I wanted to assure the board that that is fine. And we'll let you know if there's any problem, but so far we haven't had any issues to that. But if you see a different signature or something, it's because we wanted anything that's going past that July is what we're taking a look at. So just wanted to let you know that. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer that.
Okay, good morning. Just to give you a quick update on our staffing situation. This is the same dashboard that I've shared previously. Again, this is available to all of the commanders at any time. So if you ever have questions, you can just approach your precinct chief or call me directly and I'm happy to share it with you. In the last month, we've had 2 resignations. So we are down a total of 10 people now. We actually onboarded a rehire. So that helped a little bit with that, but where we stand today is we're down 10 true vacancies. We have 13 positions encumbered by folks that are in training. Anywhere from the police academy, one's just starting the academy, actually being onboarded today. And then we'll start the academy on Monday, and then we have a bunch more that are in the field training program. Some of those will be done next month. There's 6 of those that will be done next month and assigned. And then there's a bunch more that are in that process. So in the candidate pipeline, you can see down here, we have 6 applicants that applied in March that are, or so far in March, that are scheduled to take the PT test in April. We have 5 lateral candidates currently in the background process and 5 entry-level candidates currently in the background process. And then 1 lateral that's awaiting his initial interview. And that will happen probably next week. And so all of those groups, with the exception of the 6 scheduled for PT, their target hire date is May 6th. So we'll do another onboarding on that date. And then beyond that, that group of 6 that's taking the PT test next month, their target hire date will be August 1st. That's when the next academy class starts. So we'll get as many as we can into that. That's pretty much it on where we are staffing wise. I'll just go through the attrition report. So you can see year to date, we've had 6 total separations. We did have 1 event in our civilian staff. We had one of our records technicians actually passed away last week, or week before last, excuse me. That was a very unfortunate event, totally unforeseen. And so that created an opening there. We do not intend to fill that position. Again, they're trying to right size that department with the reorganization. And that will actually put them right where they need to be as far as staffing. Yes, sir.
That brings to mind the same thing coming in on the entry level. Are we gonna hire people in May? We're not sure what it's gonna look like with the sheriff and how many people actually leave the organization. I would hate for us to be in a rift situation, depending on who goes where. Should we sit on some of these vacancies until we find that exact?
So again, I agree with you, sir. It's very
We're running out of
difficult to
time.
predict because we don't know who's doing what, right? And so at this point, we're just moving forward in anticipation of that hire. If we get there and we decide that we don't need those folks, then we just won't hire.
Okay.
Hopefully we'll have some additional clarity by early May. We'll see where we're at that point, but we don't want to stop the process because it takes so long to get through it.
When you look at both models, it requires more officers than we have.
Okay, you're comfortable with that?
I mean, up to
Well,
this.
somebody's watching it. I feel better
Yes,
about that.
we are watching it. We meet every Monday and have that discussion, so we're watching it, but we do know both models require more officers than what currently.
And as you recruit and build up on the county side, are you targeting current UPD employees
Yes.
first?
Yes.
Perfect.
That was our commitment that we
No, I
were,
remember.
the priority is UPD first. And if we can't fill those, then we'll go ahead.
Okay, thank you.
Monthly attrition, again, that represents those 6 separations that we've had this year, 4 in January and then 2 in the month. Again, this is just our hiring timelines. We have that group in May that we're looking at. This group is in progress. They're actually out in FTO. This is the May group. Okay, this is the May group. This one's already done. And then we have the August class that we're looking at next. There is one additional academy class after that. That's in November, and so we'll see where we're at that point. And then our total numbers, just to give you that representation. This is the most accurate picture over here on the right of who is eligible to retire. So as of today, we have 101 that are eligible to retire from URS. And within 5 years, we anticipate that number at 190. So there's 190 additional within the next 5 years for a total of 291. So it's a very senior department, and this just is a good picture of that. That's pretty much it, unless you have any other questions.
When you say eligible to retire, is that 25 years service?
It's 20 years in the URS system. The tier 2 25-year plan started in 2011. So those people haven't realized getting there yet. It will be some time before they
What is the average for the organization of before retirement?
do.
On the fire side, it's about 27 years.
Yeah, I haven't done those analytics. I'm happy to do that for you. But it's probably right in that ballpark. I usually see about a halving from 20 years to 25 years, from 25 to 30, at about halves milestones. So
The ones that we've recently had that just, have closer to that 20 years is they're not retiring to go retire. They've received offers for other jobs that they were seeking out, so.
And of that 101 that are eligible today, 19 of those are post-retired folks. So they've already retired from URS, they're intending to just come back to work. All I've got. Thank you.
All right, item 4, UPD reorganization update. All right.
It's not April 1st yet.
You're a little. It's about 30 shares.
Oh, that happens all the time here.
That's interesting.
We just need to label that chair. Or- Well, true, but it does make good conversation at all staff meetings.
Have the short hair.
Yeah, it's happened.
Hear any music? Where's the music?
Here. Please. If you're late to the meeting, you get the short. You wear.
All right. Thank you, sir. Thank you, board. First item on the update, we need new chairs. Get that out of the way. Right? Second one, we have, as you know, and reported last month, we finished all of our presentations to the Central Townships. We're now in the phase where people did resolutions of intent, and we're now watching those meetings happen. Copperton was last night and voted unanimously to sign the interlocal. That was the first one, and most of those councils and townships, cities should have met by April 9th. See how that goes. But we appreciate all the work on the interlocal agreement. Been going pretty well. Another item that's important to note, we've really ramped up on our evaluation of being here in this building, moving out, looking at our different facility. Lieutenant Torrin Chambers is assisting with that project and working on the logistics piece. He's this week been around all the different precincts to do an evaluation there of the various facilities. I'll be working on some different parts of that project with both the sheriff and Chief Ackerman and Chief Van Emmer. But that's going really well. We're going to move very quickly on that. And so I appreciate you neighbors. You may meet him in your buildings. It's a couple weeks. We have the budget. We've done all our prep work for that. Worked very hard on it. Tremendous effort. A lot of hours put in by our fiscal staff, our commanders, and so we'll be presenting that here to you shortly. And I think you'll like what you see, and that'll be a good starting point for us. I also want you to know that every Friday now we have a group. Chief Dow was very helpful in setting this up, but we have significant amount of policies, obviously policing, lots dictated by policy, both operationally and administratively. So he has put together a group, done tremendous help. We're going through that UPD policy, which we should have mostly modified, changed, and the changes that need to be made for the July 1 start date. So that committee is working every single Friday to get that done by July 1. It's pretty heavy lift, but they're doing a fantastic job. The last thing I want to mention is we've been meeting with Ralph and Bridget from the Consolidated County District Attorney's Office. We've had some really good meetings with them. They've been helpful in terms of getting some guidance and direction of future. I will be meeting again on the 28th, I believe. And we'll also be meeting with Chief Ackerman and Chief Van Emmer to try to move forward on things that need to be done by July 1. But like was mentioned earlier, time is getting short. We need to do everything we can to make sure we are ready to go on that date. And there's a commitment.
Sorry, just a question, just as a recap, just to confirm, all the entities have declared by resolution their intent, with the exception of Immigration Canyon, is that correct?
That's my understanding.
They've
Yes.
had the presentations there, it's on a future agenda for their intent. Now the interlocal is working through the same process, and Copperton's the only one that has addressed that to this point.
Yeah, Copperton was yesterday, holiday, and correct me if I'm wrong on any of these holidays on the 21st.
Okay.
Mill Creek on the 25th, Immigration will be meeting on the 26th. Midvale on the 26th, Magna on the 26th, so by next week, most should have met and addressed that already. White City on April 4th, Kearns on April 8th, and Brighton will be April 9th.
Thank you.
Any questions for me? A lot of the bulk of what I want to talk about will be mostly. So,
Signal. Thanks, Chief.
thank you.
All right, item 5, Sully County Law Enforcement Bureau.
Morning, everybody. You have a long agenda, so I'll try to be brief as I can. We've been working on a proposal for benefits and mainly our sick leave compensation for employees that come over from UPD with the county. We're optimistic that we'll have that proposal ready by this next week. We're finalizing some job descriptions for mainly our civilian positions because each civilian position is so unique and different. It's taking a little bit longer than it has on the sworn side. We're actively working on that. Last thing is we are almost complete with our benefits flyer, and that's going to be going out with our recruitment announcement for all of our positions. And we're hoping that's finished here very shortly as well. That's all I have.
Any questions?
Did I mention that you have a target date of recruitment beginning?
We're hoping within the next week or two to have something out official. There's a few key pieces of information that we really want to get solidified that we can include in that, but we believe we are very close.
And really what the hiccup has been is for the 2.5 months, we've been spending creating that contract model for Slovisa and presenting that, and we presented that to the council, county council, and all your councils and all of you. And now we have to go back to the first model. So we had 2.5 months of delay of our original plan. So we're going back to the first model, and now we're going to present that to the county council and just move forward because we only have 3 months. So we're just going to push it forward very quickly. So in the next month, you're going to see a lot more movement. But now that we have clarity, that helps a lot. Anything else?
All right.
Thanks.
All right, item 6, UPD reorganization discussion. If anybody's got anything they want to throw in that we're not going to discuss later on the agenda, everything on my mind is pretty much on the agenda.
I just have a question. I don't want to put John Brown's on the paper spot, sorry. But you know when immigration is going to make a decision?
We will discuss it at our meeting next Tuesday. I'm assuming we will make a decision. We weren't able to do that last time.
Thank you.
No, I appreciate everybody's attentiveness to that. Here, Matt, you go through that.
I would just like to say to Councilman Bruns, if there's anybody in this room that you need at that meeting to ensure a sooner decision. by all
I think
means.
we're well informed about what we need to do.
Okay, great, thank you.
Mayor, could I just address one question? There was I got an email from Nathan Bracken regarding some language in the interlocal that he felt was inaccurate. It was in the recital where it says that House Bill 35 will convert the townships into municipalities. He wanted that to say cities and towns. And I said, I understand that the use of the word municipalities is inartful, but we talked about it and feel that it's not worth bringing the interlocal back before the board and starting the process over. But I said I would point out that we all know what House Bill 35 does, and we can't change it by a recital in the interlocal anyway. So based upon that, I said I would bring it to the board's attention that there was a statement that the townships are not, they already were municipalities. It's that they're going to be converted to cities and towns. And I don't think, and I felt at the time that because this is just a statement about a bill and nothing else in a recital, it's not worthy of slowing down that process and bring it back for the board. And he agreed. So basically, based upon that, we didn't change it, but I just want to point out that we know House Bill 35 actually does more than just converts them to municipalities, which they already were. So based upon that, I said I would make a statement to the boards that we recognize it's not just municipalities, but in fact cities and towns. But that where it is in interlocal is just a statement about House Bill 35 is one of the things that are changing. And it also says passed by the legislature. We can update that whenever it's signed. It's not significant enough to wait for the signature and restate what it does, because I think that in the end, it says what it says, it does what it does, regardless of how we define it. And it's one of simply the recitals of reasons why we're looking at doing a restated and revised interlocal. So with that statement, I indicated I put that out there. If there are any questions, great. If not, we see no reason to delay the process and move forward with the language as it is now.
I'll just add that, I was copied on that email chain. I think that Nathan and Paul asked him are both proceeding in that fashion.
I did get word that House Bill 35 was signed by the governor last night.
Oh,
Yes.
well, we're not gonna change it.
Yeah. Just curious if the language we used was the bill. How did they reference it? Municipalities or
So
cities?
they reference it as cities and towns, and Nathan was very busy with obviously getting the bill passed, and it was a catch that came in after the board had voted on it. And while yes, I had it come in beforehand, I would have changed it, but I don't think it matters because as an interlocal, we can't change what House Bill 35 does anyway. And I think it's an inartful use of the word municipality, but regardless, I just want you to know, if I asked him, if you want it changed and go back before the board, I could do that. But he, and I think I talked to Paul about it too, felt it was inconsequential to stop the whole process and start over again.
Doesn't change the intent.
No, it does not.
Okay, thank you.
And I just want to bring that to your attention. Yes.
I don't have a dictionary here, but isn't all towns and cities and townships, aren't they all municipalities?
Yes. Yes. So that's why they were municipalities beforehand. So technically what it should have said was cities and towns. But it's a recital. It doesn't govern how we do business. The recitals are why we are moving forward with a restated and revised interlocal. That's all. Fine.
Thank you. All right, we'll move on to item 7, which is the Benefits and Compensation Committee update. Director Burns and Chief Wilson.
We met on the 13th and Asian.
Sorry, I'm gonna get my screen up here. I think I clicked on the wrong thing here. Okay, sorry about that. Doesn't want to cooperate with me. So, as you know, the Benefits and Compensation Committee met last week. Unfortunately, I was sick and I was not able to be there myself. Lieutenant Lord, did a good job of filling in for me and presenting the information. And so what I've got today is just a summary. You have this in your board packet, as a printout. So I'm just gonna run through each slide here. There we go. So the benefit factors that affected us this year, were a shrinking population. With the reorganization, we know that our numbers are gonna go down. That created some concern for our underwriters. Not knowing what that number is, what that looks like for sure, it just created a little bit of instability and they were concerned about it. In addition to that, we had several major claims, four in particular that really drove our utilization up, and drove that cost up. And our prescription claims also went up significantly this year, driving costs as well. We did go out and bid for all of our benefits this year through our broker GBS. And so through that process for health, we had 5 companies bid for us. You can see those there: PHP, EMI, Select Health, Cigna, and Motive Health. Of those, PHP came back with the lowest rates again. They are our current provider. So the decision was made to stay with them. And so that's what's in the budget packet for you. You'll see those numbers. Unfortunately, we saw a rather significant increase, a 9.97% increase. That is with no plan changes. We did have a discussion with the broker. About pulling, they call it pulling levers. So basically changing plan design and maybe increasing deductibles or co-insurance and those kind of adjustments to the plan. Through those discussions, the deductible is really the biggest lever that we have as a tool. If we were to increase that, they rounded up to the nearest $500 as far as our current deductibles. So if we went up $500 in each category, it would take us down, I believe it was a 447 as an increase. So we do have those tools available. The concern with that, all of those levers are a direct cost to the employee. And so it impacts the members directly if we pull any of those levers. In the inflationary environment that we've all lived through in the last few years, obviously that's not very appetizing. So we left the 997 in the budget as a placeholder so that you can see what that looks like. And that's in your packet. As far as we have 3 different plans. We have a traditional plan and then 2 high deductible plans. You can see there where the membership falls in those plans. We still have 86 members on the traditional, 145 in the star option 1 and 107 in star option 2. And then for this year, we are planning the same HSA contributions that we made last year to the employees' HSA accounts. It's $1,200 for a single, $2,400 for a 2-party, and $3,000 for a family. Any questions on health?
So I have a question. So, you know, on the fire side, fire level side, they use a different carrier. They use Select Health, but they've negotiated, we've negotiated, I guess, like a 3-year rolling average, and then a catch up in the next year's premium based upon utilization, and it actually, we think, evens out the premiums, and you know, there are some consequences. You have high utilization, we need to pay a catch up, but if we look.
We do that, yeah.
Do that.
So they do a 3-year rolling, but you know, any year that you have significant claims, which we did this year, it just drives those numbers up. So
thank you.
Yeah. Yes.
You're looking over there, where you pointed at me, I get confused.
Yeah, sorry. I
have 2 questions.
Let's back that question.
I have 2 questions. No.
Back to GBS.
And the second question is, since they were brought on as the broker, there've been significant increases every year. Do you have an accumulation of those increases? Because it seems like we're up in the, we're gonna be up in the 20-25% in just a couple of years. Does that sound accurate?
I'm not sure. I don't have an aggregate number for you for the last 3 years. We've been with GBS for the last 2 years. Our contract is up next year. It's a 3-year contract, and we do intend to go out to bid when that contract is fulfilled. So
I guess you can't say 10% 1 year and 10% the next year and call it 20%. That's my fault. I do math and I just made a mistake. But it seems that it's been pretty significant.
yeah, there's a number of factors that drive costs and health insurance. Obviously, utilization being the largest factor, but then natural inflation and everything else goes up. So I don't know. It's always going to go out to bid for a new provider anytime that opportunity arises. That's why we went out to bid for all of our benefits this year. It hadn't been done for 2 years, so we felt like just doing the due diligence to make sure we're getting the best benefits that we can for the money.
We also receive rebates back too.
Yeah, we did receive a rebate back from PHP this year. It's about $360,000, I think, something for that too.
And I thought last year it was almost zero increase, just very low.
Yeah, again, I don't have those numbers in front of me. I'm happy to get that for you.
I thought he presented it last month and it had been relatively flat for a few years. And this is the first significant increase that I remember. Last few years. Good.
Memory's not my strong point.
Yeah. 3 months left.
Oh, geez. What the hell? Another speaker not orchestrated.
Thank you, Dave. I feel better.
Speaking of claim.
Are you sure?
I'm happy to put those numbers together for you and in this position last year, so I'm not.
Interesting if we could understand the reduction in the size of the group, how much impact that has. on this.
Yeah, we probably won't know that until next year. When we go through renewal next year, that will be a much more clear picture on how that affects. Okay, moving on. Dental insurance, our provider with the dental is Educators Mutual. There was no plan changes there. It was a flat renewal, no decrease or increase. So we're going to stick with them. We are self-insured through EMI for dental. Vision insurance actually went down a bit, 9.9% decrease there. Same provider, EMI Vision. And no plan changes or coverage. We didn't make any adjustments for that. It just naturally went down based on utilization. Accident insurance. This is 100% employee funded. This is similar to like an Aflac type accident plan. You go to the emergency room or you break an arm or something like that, you get a benefit for having this type of insurance. We went out to bid for them. We had 3 companies bid. Colonial Life is our current provider. Voya and Prudential. Voya came back with some significant savings and some richer benefits. So we are looking at maybe switching to them this year. But again, that's 100% employee funded, no impact to the organization. And then Utah Retirement Systems, we saw a 1% decrease in the civilian members' contributions and a 1% increase in the sworn members' contributions. So our overall cost up a little bit there. Just to make clear, I had a question at the beginning of the meeting. Those percentages do not affect the members' pensions at all. It's just UPD's contribution to the pension. I just want to make that clear to the membership so that they don't think that they're losing or gaining not the shame. And then the other employee benefits that we offer, we have tuition reimbursement, we have education incentive pay, which is or tuition reimbursement is a very rich benefits, 100% tuition reimbursement. Education incentive pay, we contribute that 6.2% to the members' 401ks in lieu of social security. We have an employee assistance program. A lot of the precincts, most of the precincts now have gym facilities that are free to the members, and Mill Creek's new gym is fantastic. Midvale has a very.
We're working on getting the hot water working too.
What's that?
We're working on getting the hot
Oh,
water.
the hot water doesn't work.
We have one sergeant who thinks you should not fix it. Not well, you're not well liked.
And then uniform allowance, obviously, we are going to be getting uniform. We're actually looking at a program to provide vests out of those funds. Rather than have the member have to buy those out of their funds, we would take the surplus from each year that we generally have, it's about $75,000, and put that into actually just buying members of vests. And doing that on a rotational basis so that we do about a third of the office every year. Or a quarter of the office.
What is the life on a vest?
Pardon me?
The life of a vest?
Usually they're 5 years, manufacturer warranties 5 years. On these brands. The cost of those has gone up dramatically. And so we give our members $1,200 a year. The top end vest now is about $1,800. So they can't cover it with 1 year's uniform allowance. That's why we're looking at that program. Any questions on benefits before we move into compensation? Okay. So compensation, for this year, we have market study information for our scoring folks. This was a market study that Taylorsville PD actually did. We participated and they gave us a copy of their results. This is accurate as of October of 2023. I don't think that anything has really changed since then because most cities are on a fiscal year just like we are. And they're in that budget process just like we are right now, trying to figure out what they're going to do next year for compensation. So we did not do a market study for the civilian positions this year. That needs to be done and we are planning to do that next year. We've reserved the money in the budget for that purpose. So we'll get that done. Just as a reminder, our market philosophy for UPD is to be in the top 3 in the market for each position that we have. So with that in mind, I wanted to show you our current pay scale. And this will become significant here in just a minute. So that the yellow line represents the officers. And as a reminder there, if you look to the right, we did a 3% COLA and a 3% market for the officers last year. The sergeants are the peach line. We did a 3% COLA and a 1% market for all of the other ranks that we did the same thing last year. A 3% COLA and a 1% market.
And then the line highlighted is after that increase, not prior to that increase.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes. That last one, the precinct chief, it says a 5% COLA. That is a typo. It is a 3% COLA. They got the same as everybody else. So we'll get that corrected. So I'm going to move past this slide, but I'll come back to it. So the entry level police officer, you can see there, Taylorsville is currently the top paying agency for entry level police officer at 33.27. UPD falls in the market at number 10. We're at 30.27. What I'd like to point out is that Taylorsville is on an 8-step pay scale. As I pointed out in that last slide, we are on a 12-step scale. It takes 12 years to top out. So if you were to take our pay scale and move it to an 8-step scale, our starting wage would be at step 4. Which is 33.74, which would actually put us at number 1 in the market, if you look at it that way. So the reason I point that out, I know there was some discussion about making a market adjustment to this particular area. That causes huge problems in our step plan if we do a target market in one segment of the officer rate. It creates a compression in there. So we don't want to do that. But if we were to address that in future years, try and make it an 8-step scale instead of a 12-step scale, we could get there. The other thing I want to point out with entry-level police officers, the dollars for entry-level police officer are not as important for recruitment, from my perspective. People that are at entry level just want a job. They really aren't looking at the dollars where they can get the most money. They're just looking at the first agency that will hire them. And really what it comes down to is the speed at which we can do that. That's really where it's the most competitive, is in how fast we can move people through our process. We have streamlined our process as much as we possibly can without missing things and not doing our due diligence on it. So, I just wanted to point that out just so that as you're thinking about these issues, you have that. Any questions on any of that?
I guess I have a question about why you think, I mean, you talk to new recruits about that? I mean, it seems to be the $3 difference for somebody that's just starting out, especially given the fact, the difficulty of finding recruiting officers, that would be significant.
It's anecdotal. I don't have any hard facts. That's just kind of my perception of things. Where it becomes an issue is about year one, when they start looking around the market and going, wait a minute, you know, South Salt Lake's making more than we are, or Taylorsville's making more than we are. That's where it becomes, then they start thinking about jumping. At entry level, again, it's very competitive to get into law enforcement, even in the current market. So, you know, kids coming out of the academy, they're just shotgunning their application everywhere. If we can get them through that hiring process and get them engaged early, generally we can get their, offer them a position and they'll take it. I just don't see dollars as being the driver at that point. But again, about year one, then they start, wait a minute, that's where we need to be more competitive.
I think we're all competing for the same pool of people.
We are.
It takes the UPD entry level 4 years to get to Taylorsville's starting salary.
And so that's why, and the budget realities this year are significant. I understand that. And so I'll get to this a little later in the presentation. But if we target that segment this year, it's about $1 million to eliminate 2 of those steps. If we were to take step 1 and step 2 and compress it to a 10-point or a 10-step scale, about $1 million to make that adjustment in the budget. So
That affects the compression between ranks, correct?
it does. It would, well, if that wouldn't affect the compression between ranks if we just eliminated step 1 and 2.
We start at 3.
Right.
Gotcha.
Because it just affects that entry level.
Okay.
But it's significant dollars for them. So I'll get to this a little bit later, but the COLA raise, if we do that for everybody in the inflationary environment that we're all living in, everybody's still in the pinch. And if we don't do a COLA for everybody, I think that's going to be problematic for several reasons. Next year, we're going to end up having to play catch up. To stay in the market, it's going to be even more difficult to get into that top 3 position. We're going to have to do a bigger raise. So it would be my recommendation, rather than put our efforts into that adjustment now, address the COLA this year, and then maybe as things improve budgetarily, we look at trying to manage those steps a little bit better. Does that make sense?
What does $1 million equate to as a percent of
the
our
overall
budget?
I'm not sure. Rick would probably have to answer that question.
Was the budget 64 million, something like?
I know a 1% COLA is about $500,000.
Okay.
Roughly.
So it'd be safe to say if we made that change, it would increase the budget by 2%. We go from, say, if we're a 7 PBIM, it'll go to a 9.
That's probably a good guess.
It might be helpful and it might be in your presentation somewhere, but I'm curious how many people we are talking about that are at this rank.
Yeah, and that's the other thing, and
150 entry
it's
level,
probably not even that, it's maybe 50 people
50, okay,
that are in those first couple of steps.
gotcha, thank you.
And obviously that would be impactful to them, very impactful to them. I'm not saying that that shouldn't be looked at. I'm just saying that I think this year the COLA is probably a higher priority than everybody. So moving through this, the maximum rate police officer, so this is the officer that's reached that step 12. We are number 6 in the current market, with South Salt Lake being number 1. If you look at the bottom there, a 3% COLA would put us at number 2 in the market. So that would bring us back in line where we need to be. For the sergeants and for the rest of these ranks, I just use the top out because the vast majority of the people in these ranks are topped out. So Sandy is currently number 1 in the market at 55.42. We are at number 6 at 53.58. Again, if we were to do a 3% COLA increase, that would put us at number 2 in the market. For lieutenants, Sandy again is number 1 at 64.20. UPD is number 4 at 61.74. And a 3% increase again would move us to number 2 in that range. For captains, Salt Lake City is currently the high at 71.35. UPD is at 66.90. We only have 1 incumbent that is a captain currently. Moving forward, we're actually looking to eliminate this rank and make it a deputy. That would take the agreement of the incumbent that is in that position. There's actually 2. One is currently a chief in Magna. But both of those individuals would have to voluntarily relinquish their merit status as a captain, and the merit commission would have to buy off on that. So those things have to happen before we can do that. Just want to make that clear, but the intent is to move forward with that tomorrow. And then moving to deputy chief becomes a bit more difficult here. You can see that the market data has dropped off dramatically. A lot of agencies don't like to share this level of, or this rank's detail as far as what they're paying them. So it's a little more difficult to bring that information out. So in the data that we have, we're currently sitting at number 2 at 73.78. And you can see a market increase there. Is probably the number 1. So the other thing I wanted to point out with the deputy chief rank, this also includes assistant chiefs in other departments. So West Jordan is probably an assistant chief instead of a deputy chief. Not exactly apples to apples. So recommendations, again, my recommendation would be to do that 3% COLA for all members this year. The reasons for that, again, it affects all foreign civilian staff. Everybody realizes that. It keeps us number 3 in the market position in all categories except for that entry-level officer and the captain, which we intend to eliminate. And then it eliminates that need to play catch up in future years. And again, going back to that, if we were to change our scale to an 8-step, we wouldn't be number 1. We looked at it that way. The future year recommendations would be to address that compression on scale and then eliminate the captain rank for deputy chief.
Do you have a number, what that does is total budget at 3% solar?
So Debbie actually has that in her presentation. She has a tool where we can change that and see the impact in real time. So she will do that when she.
Good question, have we done have we started looking at a chief? We're gonna have a new chief.
Yes. So that position already exists.
Okay.
The chief of police. We have not addressed compensation for that individual. But certainly that's something you can do. That's a fairly easy fix because it only affects 1 person. So we could do It's a reclassification, basically, is what we're talking about.
Well, I'm just thinking it's one of the many things I'm sure we need to check off between now and July 1st is make sure we are getting that contract negotiated, whoever that is proper to refer that to, so that piece is in place.
Yeah, for sure.
And COLAs impact the chief.
They do. They affect every member of the department. Any other questions that I can answer for you?
Thanks for reference.
Yep, absolutely. Our intent is to have another benefit contribution meeting before the whole revenue through, so that we can, you know, if you want to discuss pulling levers on the health insurance and how that affects things, we're happy to do that.
Labor will be at that meeting.
Yeah.
Because I got a question I want to understand. We're going from what we call precinct chiefs to deputy chiefs running precincts.
Yeah.
Essentially,
Yeah, essentially the same
we
thing.
have not had a true deputy chief. By eliminating the captain's position, one of those positions would be elevated to, say, a deputy chief title.
Correct.
And what happens to the other one?
He's already a deputy chief, so he would just stay there. He's a precinct chief. So,
Call them precinct chiefs, but they're officially deputy chiefs.
so terms are interchangeable, but so I apologize for that. That was confusing, but a deputy chief and a precinct chief under the current model are exactly the same thing. And they're paid.
Who on the chart, we're looking at a chief and a bunch of deputies, not a number two in charge.
So there's some discussion about that. There is a proposal to make precinct chiefs and division chiefs, but they would be paid equally. It just, the distinction between the two is a little bit different. Their functions would be a little bit different.
Councilman Copus, early on in the org chart, we had chief and assistant chief. We played around with that. We ended up eliminating the assistant chief position for cost reasons.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so unless Councilman Brems, do you want to add anything? Okay. All right, we'll move on to item 8, the financial update. Councilmember Keating. Sounds like we're gonna be sort of, that's right.
Okay, so we had our financial committee meeting on the 12th of this month. And on the very next day, we had a meeting where almost everything was discussed about within the financial committee. So I was sort of reported on that as well as the presentations done that day. However, so I did want to point out a couple things that we may not have covered. And that is in the financial committee, we were ready to switch to April 16th for the next meeting that made it so it didn't work out. So it went back to April. You all should have received an email. I just bring it up so it's in the minutes of today's meeting. Second thing, I can't remember if last board meeting we talked about our chief legal counsel, Harry, discussed about defining some visa fund balance. But I can just do a little quick summary on that. Basically, if someone leaves some visa, the fund balance goes to some visa. It doesn't go with that person that's moving out. So that was just a clarification of that. Then the other thing I wanted to bring up was just the quarterly budget amendments. We talked about that, and also that was for 2023. And then also the PDIM budget was discussed for 2024. And both of those are on today's agenda.
I guess I just wanted to see you, but we'll hear you later in the agenda unless you want to say something. All right, great. Any questions for Carolyn? All right, we'll move on to item 9, acceptance of donation.
Thank you. Another generous donation from Brad Marshall. Volunteer with our office. Been really instrumental in the drone program. He's a former UHP retired. Actually went to the academy with him. And he's done some amazing things for our drone program. So been blessed in this post-retirement career, made a donation, so we really appreciate what he's doing.
Okay, unless there's any questions or comments, I would entertain a motion.
Motion to accept the information.
We have a second.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion, and a second, any discussion on that? All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Okay, that passes. All right, item 10, fiscal year 2025 preliminary budget increase maximum determination, resolution 240304.
Chair and board, we're glad Debbie made it. She was caught in that unbelievable snarl coming off of I-15 from the crash this morning, so glad you did it.
On the bright side, I think, car did pull up next to me and tell me that I lost my hubcap about half a mile back. So that's my excuse to tell my husband I need a new car.
All right, we're here to discuss the PBIM. Why don't we just go to the next slide and get right on. So you'll recall, this was done by resolution back some time ago to try to give everybody an opportunity to see what the budget was as early as possible in the process. There's some real advantages to that. There's also sometimes some challenges with that, but I think it's a good resolution and showing this budget early on will give you a chance to go back to your governing bodies and have discussions about it. We've done the prep work at this point. Remember, this is a starting point for the budget. It'll go through different iterations until you all choose to finally approve it in June. So we can put this in here for the record. Go to the next one. Just some of the challenges with the budget this year that we identified. Obviously, the number one is the withdrawal of the sheriff's office on July 1. The change in the southeast and southwest island and how that impacts the budget. Loss of economies of scale in the direction to do the 7% increase maximum, which we'll get into that here in a minute. If you go to the next one, the next few slides just kind of show you how we arrived at this point. You're familiar with this chart, you've seen it many, many times. This is the most current organizational chart that was used to help guide us build the budget and build the organization, what it will look like operationally. Of course, it's still a draft, it's subject to change, but it hasn't changed for some time now. So I believe this is very close to what it will look like. On the next one, this gives you an idea of what the changes were. And I think when we went through this, we looked at this the first time, you know, you can see there on the bottom, the total net decrease was 71 employees. So we've made some significant changes and reductions to the organization to make this work and to keep us within the 7% directive. I won't go through, obviously, read all these, but you can see, whoa, we're going too fast. Sorry. So come on, Rick. All right, let's go back. What are the points? The org chart?
Back to the org chart.
Okay, so here, let's start here. You can see the one area there was a net increase was in our part-time positions. And again, that was done for money saving purposes. Excellent. I won't read through all these, but you can see the shared services. This is the 3 cities. Gives you an idea of what, according to the org chart, foreign positions, civilian positions, part-time positions.
I have a question. Out of the 71 positions that were down, do you know what and where most of those came from? I'm curious the impact on shared services specifically.
Some came from the shared services, some came from, it was really across the board.
Every
Yeah.
division probably felt it, but was there?
Oh, yeah.
Was there a glaring area that we cut?
No, but I will tell you that probably one of the most difficult areas was the shared services, because if you recall historically, you know, to make pay raises or previous budgets, sort of offset Taylorsville and things like that. We had already cut shared services pretty deep.
Okay.
So that's where probably our biggest debate and challenges were.
Good.
The best we could be. Yeah, everybody's contributing to the reduction to make this work. And then go back, Rick. You'll see here in Kearns and Magna, the reason we put the boxes in there is like, for instance, in Magna, you see the 338.80. You remember just some of those that have those shared areas like Copperton, there's, that's what accounts for almost 0.9 or 0.8 positions. And so we decided to plug those boxes in just so you could add that up and check those numbers. So you can see how the sharing of the deputy chief lieutenant civilian positions across various precincts does that. Go to the next one. Same thing with the township. And then again, remember you, this is certainly subject to change. This is the starting point, but I think we're in a pretty good place, and I'll have discussions with you in the future as this develops, what direction you'd like to take for this board individually. Go ahead, Rick. So I'm gonna have Debbie get into some of the budgetary portions here.
Okay, so the PBIM is under the 70-20-10 shared service formula. That's on 70% cases, 20% population, and 10% property valuation. And we show, the table there shows the breakdown by city, and then the overall for Slovisa on how the number of cases that you have, and your population, and then also your tax valuation for your city and your area. And then below the blue one is the yellow one, and that's Slovisa broken out for each individual for their cases, population, and tax valuation. So you'll see Slovisa in the blue section, in the blue and white section, that's your total. And then the bottom one is your breakout of that total, showing what each one of your percentages for each one of those factors. So the number of sworn officers that we reported to back dropped by 17%. So that was going from the old number to the 270. We actually reported 273 to them because they needed to have a number early on, and we wanted to make sure that we had room for cushion there. We're at 270, but Beck has 273. That's their number. But that did reduce our assessment by them by 11.4%. So that's saving us $255,353 this year. As Mark mentioned, health insurance is up 9.7%. That is shared with the employees at an 80-20 split. So UPD's 80% portion of that is $341,400. The URS rates are up 1% for sworn and down 1% for civilian across the board because there are several plans. So some went up, some went down, but the averages came to 1%. Again, wages and benefits, you've heard this before, we're basing this on actual amounts, not averages. But this will change. And so I want to be very clear here to emphasize that we don't know yet who's going. We'll be going to the sheriff's office, and we don't know who's going to be staying. So, you know, this is just the PBIM right now. That will change. We're hoping that by the time the tentative budget has to be presented in May, that we'll have those numbers, and then we'll have a more accurate figure of what those actual wages and benefits will be. And then right now, the cost of living, we do have in the PBIM a 3% cost of living calculated in here. That's just, again, the board can make a decision on that. We just put that in here to see where the PBIM would go if we put that in there.
And go back, one thing I want to mention on the health insurance. that was really nice. You know, it's kind of a difficult year, but that was a nice team effort by everybody to try to be as cost efficient as we could, found a huge erosion of benefits with big out of pockets, the things that we couldn't change to make that go down. But we tried to preserve the benefits for our employees the best we could. Save as much money we could, and have that balancing act. So I think we achieved that. That was a real great effort by HR.
Okay, so the total budget right now, as it stands is 64.57 million. The city's share of that is 37.78 million, or 65.55% of that. So Visa's share is 26.79 million, or 34.15%. And then the overall increase is 3.9 million. And then the breakout there is what each of the cities in Visa overall is for the increase in the percentage. So the overall PBIM that we're presenting today is 6.58%. And again, this will change once we know which personnel are going to be going to the sheriff office and which will be staying with UPD.
Is that Mayor Stevenson, is that just an economy loss, or did you guys add some patrol?
We have not had anything.
That's just absorbing the inefficiency created by having to separate.
We do have again, so here's the overall budget for everyone, the total overview for your revenue, precincts costs, the revenues that we receive in shared services and your portion for it, and then the shared service operations cost. And then compared to last year, taking out of it the one-time allocation for the fund deficit that was found in the audit, because we wanted to compare apples to apples. And that's where we get our total budget and comparison for last year and the percentage increase. So that's the overview of it. And then the next page is Lisa's breakout. So again, this does have the 3% COLA in there. The board, of course, can tell us what they want us. We do have the, we made it so that we can plug in changes if you want, and you would be able to see what that effect would be.
Thank you. For me, I mean, again, clearly looking at this bill going with a 15% increase of 1.8 million. That's an almost 40% property tax increase we're looking at. And so based on what was just presented with the 3% COLA, I know last week I was saying, let's focus on those entry level. I appreciated what Chief Olson said. I'm personally comfortable with the 3% COLA. I think that puts a lot of our folks into a good position. Personally, I'll have a hard time justifying anything about that just based on where we're already at just with this reorganization. So that's where I'm at, but.
If you'd like us to show you that live worksheet, you can do that. It's totally up to the board.
Except
So but the PBIM is set at 7%. The way it's currently budgeted, it's at 6.58. So we still have a touch of.
And I'm comfortable, and again, I'm comfortable if we did the 7% PBIM, a little bit of wiggle room still within that if other things change. I don't think we need to set it at the 6.8, but I just, as far as COLA goes and how that interacts.
Yeah, because this, now it'll all go into the hopper anyway. We'll go back to benefits and comp, and if there's, we get input from the employees about how they want to prioritize stuff, we can switch how we prioritize things inside that or under that 7% cap. You know, if they wanna, say for instance, the employees came, I don't think they would do this, but I'm just saying as a for instance, if they said, look, we wanna take our deductibles up and drop our health insurance and we wanna move that to and increase the COLA by 0.5%, I don't think the board would care if that was their priority. I don't think that will happen, but stuff can move now. It's just, we've got that cap as the kind of the max that we're willing to go over at this point.
Yeah, I agree. And having a little bit of wiggle room, because again, there's a few variables at play, but I don't see anything significant at this point.
But that's very helpful to know that you're allowing that wiggle room between the 6.58 and the 7. We can.
I have a question. We still have 0 as a placeholder for Salt Lake County. They are a member of Slovisa. I know that's more of a Slovisa issue, but that number has to be added in at some point. I don't know what that is exactly yet, but that will increase the 1.6 projected increase for Slovisa, but it will have an effect on the whole.
No, it won't impact,
It'll just be a
it
Slovisa
will
issue.
just be
Okay, so their numbers will not change, ours will. Okay,
And I'd like to clarify, if that's okay, how you did the valuation for Slovisa. Did it only include the members or did it include unincorporated county? I'm looking at this piece here.
Is that right?
In comparison to last year, it includes the number here. Shows that Southeast Islands and Southwest Islands are at a 0 this year. Last year it did this. Last year was because it's the bottom number compares to the year.
we can go to the chart.
Sure. That shows the difference, that 2.7 that we've been talking about, right? When you're minus both those two. So if you look at Southeast Islands for variable cost, there's nothing there. Nothing there, which is last year's comparison, because there were in there last year. That's why there's a negative 100%.
I think you were looking at the.
I'm looking at the valuation related to their services.
Okay, you can go to that. Understood your question.
That's okay, I'm sorry if I didn't ask it correctly.
While we're on this, and we're pulling up this, the evaluations, that's all based on the 3-year average.
So Southeast Island.
The 3-year rolling.
Yeah.
So the tax valuation does not include unincorporated county?
No.
I'm just verifying, okay, thank you.
And as Mayor Stevenson asked, the cases are on a rolling 3-year average. Cases go up 1 year, it doesn't have much of an impact.
With the projected increase for Slovisa at 1.6, we still have the latitude to go to 7%. This is the piece.
With UPD, yes, so we budgeted a 7% increase just to do Lovisa. And so if EVIM to hit a 7%, we'd still be well below 7% with Lovisa.
All right,
Motion to approve the PBIM, which should we amend that to say 7% rather than 6.5?
Up to,
Up to 7%. I'll make a motion to approve resolution 24-3-4 of 2024. Increase maximum to 7% for the upcoming fiscal year.
here we do have a motion on that. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second for the PBIM to be up to 7%. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Any abstentions? Okay.
Mr. Chair, if I can just mention, a lot of time and effort went into the, all sorts of folks. Again, this will even really support from the board and help punch through, and Chief Dow was helped do the double duties. Appreciate everybody.
I want to say, I want to thank you, Debbie. And Chief. I mean, actually, you've done what we asked you to do, and it's been tough, I know, especially with all the unknowns that are, I mean, there's some that are still floating out there, you know. So I appreciate the work that you put into this and the fact that you have this conflict.
And I know that, that meeting was just last week where we gave some directions and try to come back this week. And I'm sure it was a lot of work to be ready for this.
We have a UPD break, this organization break, we have break. Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to item 11, fiscal year 2023 to 2024 budget amendments. We'll first hear presentation.
So you've got these in your packet, and you also had a memo attached with it. It's gonna go off with the memo that I gave you. I did, as always, I color code these so you can try to match the revenue source to the expenditure that it's related to. For the general fund, the UPD received the following donations. We received a non-cash donation of 2 orthopedic beds for the canines. Total value is $500. We received a non-cash donation of drones, B2 goggles, and motion controllers and battery. The total value on that is $999. We received a $25 cash donation to be used wherever UPD felt if it needed. And again, those were all presented in January board meetings. We received a non-cash donation of 2 Mavic 3T batteries. The total value was $418, and that was presented here today. Reclasses within the general fund, we are transferring 21,000 from communications equipment to small equipment for the purchase of 3 drones plus attachments. We are transferring 97,468 from cell phones and MiFi to radio equipment to pay for radios and antennas for 50 new vehicles. We're transferring $1,819 from small equipment to law enforcement equipment to supplement the grant that's purchasing the IA Pro, which has an early intervention feature. Amendments to the current precinct include a $400 cash donation for car seat benefiting citizens of Kearns as the needs arise. And then reclasses are $10,000 transfer from overtime, which is funded by the balance in their liquor tax to surveillance equipment and monitoring. And that's going to go toward the purchase of vigilant license plate reader. And then we're transferring $9,068 from computer components to surveillance equipment and monitoring to go toward the purchase of the vigilant license plate reader as well. Amendments to the Magna budget, we have a reclass of $6,000 from small equipment to surveillance equipment and monitoring to go toward the purchase of the vigilant license plate reader. And then amendments to the Suffolk County fully funded include a reclass of transfer of $6,000 from telephone, cable, and data to education and training for the Metro gang training. And then transfer of $20,000 from investigations MIU capital purchases to overtime to cover this year's projected overtime usage. And then we're transferring $5,000 from Metro gang unit overtime to non-UPD services to cover overtime to non-UPD officers for gang-related services. So with that, have the second page, I think it was 178,000. What the overall amendment was to
178,697.
yes, 178,697. Thank you.
Okay, any questions for Debbie before we open public hearing?
Explain that last one, the law police non-UPD overtime one. I'm just confused by that.
So we do, I don't know if it's a contract or an agreement to have other officers from other entities that are not with UPD that work in, that help with the game unit. And so they need to bill us so that we can pay them. And we received a bill that hadn't been, they hadn't given us that bill, I think for over 3 years. So we needed to pay that bill, and so the request was that we take it out of the overtime budget that we have in the Metro game unit. Overtime, so we could pay that bill. But we had to move it out of there to, we have a line item called non-UPD services, so we're moving it out of there so that it reflects that it didn't go to our UPD officers and went to go towards paying non-UPD officers for their service.
So it's countywide general fund paying non-UPD officers.
I'm sorry.
So it's countywide county funding
Yeah,
paying non-UPD officers.
well, it was budgeted in the countywide budget for overtime. And then when that bill came, it was for a non-UPD officer. So we wanted to make sure it was reflected in the right account, but there wasn't enough in that account to pay for it. So they moved it from over to that account to pay that.
Hey,
Yes.
Debbie, if I could clarify for him,
Sure.
Go ahead.
the funding is actually out of a grant. And the grant funding is split between the overtime and the non-UPD personnel. So we didn't have enough in there for the non-UPD personnel, so we're just shifting money around, but it's all out of a grant that pays for the task force overtime.
It's not Dustin Feller, he's
Like just the voice. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Dustin.
So Debbie, do we have any idea about what outstanding it's like this one that would carry past July 1? I mean, I think that'd be important to tie that up so we know that separation occurs.
Yeah, we're like this one did kind of surprise us, and so, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that we're looking at, contracts, things that can over reach into the new year. So I think everyone is trying to go through everything that they have to try and tie everything up before we have that June 30, and we'll continue to look at that.
Otherwise, the statute of limitations apply. It didn't
I-
apply for 3 years.
Yeah, and you know, we discussed that when the bill came through, but this is such an important service, and it's just not. It was an oversight, and so.
It is problematic with respect to entities that are on this budget and have to reach to pay it if they
And I think because it was a grant that we felt comfortable with, so.
It's an important clarification.
Okay, any other questions? All right, with that, I would entertain a motion to open a public hearing on these budget amendments.
I'll move to open the public hearing on the budget amendments for fiscal year 2023-24.
You have a second?
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion on that? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we're moving in, open this up for public comment. Do we have any public comments on the side? Do we have any online public comments? Okay, seeing none, entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
And a second, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, public hearing is closed. We move on to item C in this approval of the 2023 to 2024 budget amendments, resolution 24/5. Unless there's any other questions or comments, I would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution 24-03-05 2024 to approve the amendments for this quarter.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Mayor, could I request a roll call vote? I'm not 100% certain we need one, but let's be careful to do that if that's all right.
Sure thing, as long as harmony.
Director Bradley,
Director Bradley.
Director Cardenas.
Aye.
Director Nally.
Aye.
Director Keithley. Director Litvak.
Aye.
Director Olson.
Aye.
Director Peterson.
Aye.
Director Prokopis. Director Silvestrini. Director Stevenson.
I would like to change my vote to the aye.
We'll move on to item 12, which is just upcoming meetings. We've got a finance committee meeting Tuesday, April 9th, at 8 a.m. Board meeting on April 10th. Another meeting on April 25th at 9 a.m. Any meetings on there that aren't on there that should be, or any issues with those? Okay.
April 9th, the final date for the finance. I know we talked about moving that. Did we end up having to leave it where it was?
Yeah, we moved it and it fell on the meeting.
Okay. Thanks. Appreciate the clarification.
I will be zooming in.
We're gonna be gone. Okay, thanks.
Director Olson's is out of town. All right. Item 13, approval of the February 15th, 2024 meeting minutes, unless there's any changes to those. I can.
So moved.
For the minutes.
Take that. So, would you like to second?
I'll second.
Thank you so much for that. All right, any discussion on that? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? So thank you, that passes. Do we have any other business?
Yes, sir. So I just want to provide the board that we discussed the situation with the litigation in Taylorsville, session the last board meeting, some of the but in any event, I received, well, I actually had a personal conversation with Mayor Wilson from Taylorsville earlier this week, where she requested that she and I and Taylorsville's council and UPD's council get together to discuss the potential resolution of our litigation in a lunch meeting, which we, blessing, I guess, are scheduled for April 15th noon. So we're gonna meet with them and see what they have to say, I guess, and see if we can explore a resolution of the matter. Hope you guys okay with that.
Appreciate you doing that.
Mr. Mayor, I have a comment as well. I would just like to go on the record as we approve the preliminary budget up to 7%. I have some concerns. These are really Slavisa concerns, but I think it's important to every member of the larger organization. Slavisa makes up about 35% of the organization. And I don't want there to be any surprises. It has been pointed out the projected budget exceeds possible revenues. And that's dipping into the fund balance to the tune of $500,000 to make it balance. And that has no placeholder in place for any of the sheriff's new asks. So there's obvious work to be done on the Slavisa side, and I just don't want that to come as a surprise to anybody. And as we're getting nearer and nearer to knowing who's going where, who's staying, what's needed, that is the primary focus of Slavisa going forward.
I'd like to thank you for making that comment. It's why I voted against
Those same thoughts were going through my mind. I did approve it in the anticipation that we can meet everybody's needs and land that number. Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
Motion adjourned.
Thank you so much. Is there a second?
Yeah, second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. We're adjourned.